Boker Tov, everybody. Good morning. Thank you for coming. Mazel Tov, Shoshana. Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov. We are learning the month of Adar, sponsored by the Silver Family, Lili Nishmas Bas Vega Bas Yisrael, by the Polsteins, the Lili Nishmas Friedesson Bas Yitzchak, and by the Reichs for the Refuah Shlema of Reuven ben Hinda. The week is sponsored by Dalia Orlev, Lili Nishmas Chana Batzara Vishmuel, by the Celtics, Lili Nishmas Yitzchak ben Yosef Tzvi, by Josh and Marilyn Adler, Lili Nishmas Yitzchak ben Tzvi. Anonymous, Ashreinu Sheish Lanu Rebbe Kaze, I agree, especially today's learning. Ashreinu. And by the Yudelmans in honor of Yisrael and Miriam's wedding, where they married to build a binyan adei ad filled with simcha and shefa brachas beruchnius uvegashmius. Amen. Ken Yiratzon. All right. We are, for those that don't have a Likutei Moharan, I'm passing around the pages over here for whoever needs. We're right now continuing Ot Bet, the second letter, the second stage of this teaching. In Likutei Moharan 65, Samech A. A quick review of what we learned last time. We were speaking about Baal Hasadeh, the master of the field. There's a field, the master of the field. This field we were speaking about is so precious. It was such a romantic Torah last week. Like the way he described it, it was like brought out such ahava, such love. And in this field that we were speaking about, these are where the neshamas of those who keep Torah and mitzvahs are. It's where they grow, basically. And there are other neshamas that are wandering outside of the field. And Reb Nachman referred to those people as neshamot arumot, I think he said, right? Mm-hmm. They wander outside the field either because they don't have the garments, which is levushim of Torah and mitzvahs, and therefore they can't get entry into the field, or either because they exited the field to find something, but now they have a hard time coming back inside and returning. But there's a Baal Hasadeh, and that's the point of this teaching in the context of our learning, is that there's a master of the field. That is the tzaddik. The tzaddik who sees, who mashke, he's the one that gives life to those neshamas that are trying to figure out what they're here to do in this world. And only a really great tzaddik, the tzaddik that we're speaking about on the level that Rabbi Nachman is referring to, they are able to both tend to the souls that are inside the field and that are outside the field to do a tikkun for their neshamas. All this has to do with Rabbi Nachman understanding what he was here to do in this world. When we had the famous statement where he said, I, on my own part, didn't have anything to do in this world for myself, like the tikkun of his own neshama. I'm here in this world for others, to help fix others, both the living and those that are not in this world as well. That's what we learned. That's what we learned last time. That was the beginning of this teaching, and the tzaddik knows exactly how to keep the ilanot, the trees, the souls, giving each one their space so that they don't hover over each other. That was when the last thing we learned. Lefamim tzarich le'ra'ot lemikorav gadol harchaka gdola kidei shelo yakchish et chavero. That sometimes it's necessary to act a little bit distant towards someone in order to make them move away from where they are, because they're taking up too much space in the field where they are, and they're suffocating other people. Which would happen quite often. We see this by many great tzaddikim, that it seems that they sometimes, people, if you're not sensitive enough to this, you can get so insulted and so have such a bad taste, and decide, this tzaddik is not for me. But what they're really doing is they're saying, listen, tfos makom shelcha, find your spot, find your place. So it seems like it's like Kilu the tzaddik is saying, get out of here, I'm not interested in you. Mamish that's not what's going on at all. It's basically just making space to make sure that in the sadeh, everything can grow and sprout beautifully. Now, today's teaching is very, very shayach, I think, to just about anyone that understands that the tachlis of life is to figure out how to daven. The purpose of life is to figure out how mamash to use my words properly. Now, that doesn't just mean learning Hebrew, and it doesn't just mean learning deeper kavanas of tefillah. What it also means is the ability to remember the beginning of my davening and where I am at the end of davening. This is a big thing, memory. Sometimes, quite often, we could start saying a bracha in Shmona Esrei, and by the end of that same bracha, have absolutely zero memory or connection to where we were just a few seconds ago. We've joked about it many times. Sometimes, I guess this is more shaykh by men. Sometimes what ends up happening is that, especially in Shema, it should never happen to anybody, but because the lashon of the end of V'ahavta and B'hayim Shamua is a little bit the same, it's okay. You could nervously nod. It's fine. We're like, am I at the end of V'ahavta or am I at the end of B'hayim Shamua? Like, what's... No one knows. That's what we're here for, to provide comfort. No one knows what I'm talking. No, this is. Yeah. There's a few others. We could fill in a lot. One of the jobs of the tzaddik we're going to see today is to be able to give us a sense of completion with our tefillah. Why? Because there's nothing more complete and beautiful than when a person is one with the body of their tefillah, with the whole tzura of the tefillah. There's nothing more complete in this world. It's a tachlis in this world. It's an amazing thing. It's an incredible, incredible thing. There's nothing more complete than going into a tefillah, being with it from the first second until the end. Now, Rabbi Nachman is going to take us into this this is a very deep shir today, it's warning everybody. Rabbi Nachman's taking us into an inner dimension of what's taking place with our neshama while the body is uttering words, while it's speaking. And the requests that the neshama has to the person while it's davening. All right? So we'll do the best that we can, like we always try to, and we'll take it from there. Does anyone have the exact time? What's that? 9:25, 26? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay. We're on Otbet. Veda. כשהנשמות עושים פירות שעושים רצונו של מקום. That the souls, how do these souls, these trees, how do they bear fruit in the garden? When they do Hashem's will, עושים רצונו של מקום. And what happens when we're doing what we're supposed to be doing? Azai me'irin einei Baal Hasadeh. The light of the eyes of the Baal Hasadeh are shining bright. This is a very, very important yesod in understanding Chassidus, in understanding Breslov, that a lot of people don't really know of, and they actually do a lot of harm by not knowing this. Again, I'm going to say these words again. Veda, כשהנשמות עושים פירות שעושים רצונו של מקום, that when these souls are blossoming and they're bearing fruit, and they're doing the will of Hashem, meaning they're acting in a way that's in accordance of Torah and doing mitzvahs, what ends up happening is that you're giving access to somebody. Who are you giving access to? The tzaddik, the Baal Hasadeh. His eyes begin to shine. ויכולים להיות צופין ורואים במקום שצריך. And they can gaze and see where they need to. They could see everything that's going on. They could see and gaze towards the areas that maybe beforehand they couldn't see, meaning they could be more connected and attached to neshamas where they're at. What does this mean? So there's a footnote that I want you to hear. Again, these classes, we have to be very clear. And Reb Chaim Kramer just has some key footnotes. It'd be impossible to do a share with every single footnote, but I want you to pay close attention. Open your hearts for this. So the master of the field we know is a true tzaddik, and he tends the spiritual field and cares for the souls that grow there. The individual attention that he gives each soul enables it to grow spiritually. Now here, Rabbi Nachman adds the reciprocal element in the relationship between the tzaddik and the souls under his care. The tzaddik is the root soul of all souls. Okay, he's the shoresh neshamot. This is very hard for people that aren't holding in Chassidus. They don't understand what that means. But a chassid, I heard Reb Shlomo refer quite often when he wanted to say Rebbe in English, he would say soul master. What does that mean? It doesn't mean that it's a master over my soul, but it's the root of where my neshama is shayach to. It's the root where my neshama is shayach to. Now, obviously, this begs the question, can a person be shayach to two different tzaddikim? Shoshana. What do we think? Can a person have a shoresh neshama? Can their shoresh neshama be by two different Baalei Hasadeh? So, in the root of it all, no. But until you get there, yes, 100%. Because we feel this all, especially in this shul. We're drawing, someone once asked me, they said, אני מבולבל לגמרי. בבוקר נכנסתי לפה, ראיתי חבר'ה לומדים ליקוטי הלכות של רבי נתן. I see there's a Reb Nassan Likutei Halachos shir. Then I saw the Chaver gathering around the Chabad Rav, they're learning Tanya. Then I hear you talking about Piasetzna. So that's the world we're living in today, is that it's such a massive field, and there's so many people in this field, and that's really the field we're in today. But a real stark Breslover knows his Shoresh Neshama is only by the Baal Hasadeh. He knows that. It is what it is. Until you get there's another story. But for now, we're just trying to understand how Rabbi Nachman teaches this teaching. So he says, Reb Chaim Kramer is explaining that the tzaddik is the root soul of all souls, of those growing inside the field, and also those wandering outside it. Still, now this is important. This is the point of what I wanted to share with you. Even the greatest tzaddik cannot help his followers unless each one takes responsibility for their own tikkun and participates in it. Because a lot of tainas that people that are not into Chassidus is saying, they say what? The Chassid just relies on the Rebbe to do all the avodah as long as he's connected to him. That's not the story. In fact, we know also the whole inyan of the tikkun haklali, without getting too involved in the depth of it right now. Yes, Rabbi Nachman made a promise. You come to his grave, you recite the tikkun haklali, and you give money into a pushka there. The only thing is that people aren't so big on is that there's also the notion of, and the Rabbi Nachman says, and you do tshuva shlema. That has to be part of it. So again, a person, unless you take responsibility for your own tikkun and participate in it, the tzaddik cannot help the follower. Moreover, without his followers, the tzaddik lacks the power to rectify the naked souls and any others that are trapped outside the field. Now, where do they learn this from? This is amazing. This is illustrated by Hashem's censored of Moshe after he ascended to Shamayim to receive the Torah, only to have the people sin with the golden calf. We're reading next Shabbos. And Hashem says to him, go down, lech red, ki shichet amcha. Go down, for your people have become corrupt. Chazal say this to mean, I gave you greatness only because of the Jewish people, but now that they have sinned and are no longer deserving of the Torah, go down from that level of greatness. So from this we see that the tzaddik attains lofty levels precisely when the Jews are attached to Hashem. If they slacken in their devotion, the tzaddik also suffers. So in our context, this manifests in the tzaddik's diminished ability to affect the rectifications of the field. So it makes
the sense of achdut that we feel, because we're all tied into that.
That's amazing. So meaning what? Like take it to the next level of today's situation in Am Yisrael.
Each person has to really open. I try to put this onto an image as if like someone is in charge of let's say the pool of water. But if you don't open up your berets, nothing's going to come out. Mm-hmm. So everyone really has to be opening up all their brazim in order so that
The shefa.
whole, and so that the shefa could go really to everybody.
Nachon. Nachon. Okay. So this is important for us to illustrate what it means over here. He says, again, I'm not going to read the words again and you'll understand it much better. בדק שהנשמות עושים פירות שעושים רצונו של מקום, אזי מאירין עיני בעל השדה. When I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, then the Baal Hasadeh and his eyesight is working. It reaches where it needs to reach. ויכולים להיות צופין ורואים במקום שצריך. And it could see what it needs to see. וזה בחינס, and Rebbe Nachman always does this. He doesn't just say concepts. He shows how this is all rooted throughout the whole Torah. This is what it means, sde tzofim. Sde tzofim, a seer's field, tzofi, to be able to see. אבל כשאין עושים רצונו יתברך חס ושלום, but when we're not the way we're supposed to be, אזי נתחשקים עיניו חס ושלום. Then the tzaddik's eyes become darkened. Sde bochim. Azai nitchashkim einav, chas v'shalom, his eyes become dark and dim. And this is the bechina of Sde bochim, the field of weeping. What's the weeper's field? So we all know that it used to be the minhag, that by levayas, remember they would hire, how do you say this? Mekonenot. To get people to really feel the pain, there were professional women that knew how to start crying, and then they were hired and they were crying there in the field, right outside of the cemetery, before people would go inside and be in the right place. They were like the tone setters. It sounds kind of weird because it's like what they were the Hollywood, like they knew how to, like they brought onions and they were like cutting onions as people were coming in. So then they had this chush, they had this inyan to be able to cry, and this is called Sde Bochim, and it was always at the edge of the cemetery, and this place called Sde Bochim in the Mishnayos is actually an impure place. Obviously, we're talking about the place of Kvura. So Rabbi Nachman says, Ki bechi hu kilkul hareut. Crying damages one's vision. כמו שכתוב, ושבו האבים אחר הגשם, which means that the clouds return after the rain. We'll explain this in a second. ודרשו רבותינו זיכרונם לברכה, what does it mean in Kohelet when it says that the clouds return after the rain? זה הרעות שהולך אחר הבכי. We're referring here to vision, which is diminished as a result of crying. You ever try right, mamish, after you really let a good sprinkle out, right? When the sprinkler systems are working, and then afterwards you try to look out and gaze, it's not clear. It damages our field of vision. Interesting, we use that field of vision. So, again, another footnote here is very important. So the Talmudic passage that we just quoted is from Chazal's commentary to Kohelet, where he refers to the aging process, which appears in the final chapter of Kohelet. V'shavu ha'avim achar hageshem, that the clouds return after the rain, refers to a man's diminishing sight because of the many tears that weaken his eyes. Thus, when the supernal field loses a soul on account of which tears are shed, the field is then said to be a weeper's field. The loss of the soul signifies a clouding of the master of the field's vision. With his sight weakened, he can no longer see all that he needs to see in order to effect tikkun. This was all trying to show us over here, taking illustrations, but by showing how that's all alluding to how the tzaddik functions in this world. Again, when we're taking responsibility and doing our best, according to Chassidus, you still need the shirish of your neshama, which is the Rebbe, which is the tzaddik, to then guide you to where you need to be guided. His ability to help you is based on your responsibility. That produces a field that's called Sde Tzofim. Tzofim, Lisa had Nevuah to name her daughter this. Tzofia, right? So what does Tzofia mean? I actually have a nickname for her. I call her gazer, right? To be able to gaze. To be able to see. Like, There are a lot of other words, a lot of other statements we have that have to do with tzofia. Kol tzofaich nasu kol yachdav yiranenu. Metukim midvash benofet tzufim. This word shows up all over the place. There's others ones. I can't remember them right now. Huh? Tzofia halichot beta. Of course. Yeah, we scream. Tzofia halichot beta. So the field that we have like that is called as det tzofim. The other type of field that ends up being a result of our not taking responsibility and just ki'ilu saying, the tzaddik will fix it all, forget about us, we don't have to do anything, causes a sde bochim, a field of weeping. Is that clear so far? What he did with these two fields? So far so good? Not so much? This is, you have to get used to Reb Nachman's lashon. What he does when he says Torahs like this is he's just taking you on a field. He's not saying anything different than what he said before. He's just showing you how it's shown throughout the Torah, throughout Tanakh. That's Rabbi Nachman's way throughout all of his teachings. Uchshe'enav me'irot v'tzofot. When the tzaddik's eyes are illuminating and shining and gazing, b'fchinot zdet tzufim, in the aspect of the seer's field, the visionary field, azai yachol listakel bekol echad ve'echad lehavio latachlit. Then the tzaddik is able to look into each person's neshama and tell them, I'm here to bring you to your purpose. Hainu, sheyachol listakel be'adibur shel kol echad, im eino al tikuno bishlemut. Amazing. Rabbi Nachman now teaches us how does Rebbe vision work? It's not that he looks into your soul and says, I see that that's not what it is. Based on what does a tzaddik know where you're holding? This is very important. What did he just say? Dibur shel kol echad. Based on the way that you're talking. Really, based on the way that you're davening. Based on the way that the words are coming out of your mouth, how it sounds, the tzaddik knows where you're at. This is very interesting. Whether you're holding or you're not holding. And when a person is still very far from the tachlit, which we didn't even describe yet, we mentioned at the beginning of this year, then Rabbi Nachman can then bring a person closer to their purpose. And when that happens, hadibur kehogen beshlemut, and as a result, speech is whole, as it should be, karaui, like it should be. So this is very important for us that Rabbi Nachman introduces us now to a whole world where the element of speech is related to tachlis in this world. It's the ultimate purpose of one's bria, of one's creation in this world. You ever feel like you mumble when you've like been brought before like a really holy person, and it's your time to speak, and you know there are plenty of gem videos that don't get posted. There are plenty of like Rebbe videos. Like we just see the ones. It's like if I watch NBA highlights, it's like 3-minute recaps of the night before. It just shows me when really cool things happen and amazing shots happen. And then for like years and years, that's the only access I'll have to, my favorite sport, basketball. And then if I'm traveling somewhere and there's like a game on at a bar in an airport and I get really excited, like I watch a few minutes of live basketball, I get very confused because people are missing shots. I'm like, what's going on over here? Because in my mind, the game is that it always works, right? So I'm like, what's going on over here? So with those videos, I always wonder, like, what? I mean, you could have access to all of them if you pay for it. With these Chabad Rebbe videos, but we always see the ones that are like the amazing question and the most amazing moment of answer, right? But there were plenty of times when a person had all these machshavas, all these thoughts and preparations of what they were actually going to say. Real Hasidim prepared for weeks to have yechidus, to even pass by for $1 with mikvah and hisboinenus and writing it, going over and then thinking about it, and then they finally show up before the tzaddik, and I haven't seen any of these, but I can imagine like they blurted out, Lehavdil elef alfei avdalas. Okay? I'm going to repeat again. Lehavdil elef alfei havdalas. In the mid 80s, I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's just, it's Purim, it's others in the air. My parents used to have to attend all these communal functions as being the chazan of a very big, prominent community in Los Angeles. And it was very much linked with the Simon Wiesenthal Center, which was, I think, just starting back then. And it was led by Rabbi Marvin. Simon Wiesenthal was still alive. He would come to these functions. And they used to have to do all these dinners, and my father was the cantor, so he would have to do a piece, or I don't know exactly. And as like one of the night, please don't look at my father differently for this one, okay? I'm just saying it's this poor. My mom, we laugh at it all the time in the house. As you know, I grew up in a home where there was always these Jane Fonda exercise videos. You remember those? So some of you remember those? So as she was the guest at one of these dinners, and like they passed by my father, and my father just looked at her and said, "You're so beautiful." Just walked by. Like it was just these moments where, like, you blurts out lehavdil. Listen, I'll tell you another Purim story. This is also what happens to us when we get jittery and we're not, like, caught off guard or whatever, or even if we think we're prepared and we're not. On the Motzei I was living in LA when Princess Diana was killed in that car accident. So it was a Shabbos. It happened on Shabbos. That Motzei Shabbos, I had a cousin visiting from Argentina, from Buenos Aires. We went out to eat. We went out to this ice cream store in Beverly Hills, like this kosher ice cream store, and we're sitting there, Lava Malka, Motzei Shabbos, ice cream store, Carvel, I don't remember what it was. And in walks Jay Leno to the ice. I grew up in LA, all these stars were around us all the time. And Jay Leno walked inside the ice cream store. And I look at him, and I'm like, I don't know why I said this. I told my family, "Hey, look, it's Rabbi Leno." He looks back at us, right? And he goes like, "This is amazing." He looks at us, and he's like, "Oh, Shabbos came out already." He was confused. He immediately associated the Orthodox Jews. It's Saturday. What are you doing? You're coming out, And he looks. It was so weird. Like Jay Leno looks at his watch and looks at us. It's like, yeah, Shabbos came out already. One of these weird moments. To kind of bring it back to what we're learning right now, of being just fettered. It happens so often that also with friends, by the way, when you have when you have a deep friendship with someone and you haven't seen them in a while and you're going to see them. And let's say you're not in touch on texting and WhatsApp, whatever, and you're not going to see them again, and you haven't seen them for a while. Sometimes it happens that, and you have all these preparations of what you're going to say and how it's going to come out, what you think they're going to say. The dibur is so telling on where a person is at. It's so telling. So Rabbi Nachman is telling us the tikkun of a person, and the tachlis of a person in this world is to know what you really want to say to Hashem. Hadibur b'shleimus. Such a deep thing. Do you know what you really want to tell God? A person can spend their whole life praying for hours. Not just from the siddur, but also saying a lot of different things. But to be able to really tell God what you really want to tell God is the tachlit, is the purpose of us human beings being created in this world. That's an amazing thing. It sounds so, what are you talking about? When you think about it, it cuts through the deepest depths of our souls. The more that we take responsibility for hoping to be connected to doing Torah and mitzvahs, the more this illuminates the eyes of the tzaddik to be able to do that root work with us, for us to be able, for our words to manifest properly and for that the dibur should be b'shleimut. Let's continue. I'm sure it sounds stupid to say any questions until now. Probably have a million questions, but any questions that we can't move forward unless we ask them? Okay, don't hold back. This is new territory for us, okay? Ki kol dibur v'dibur hu olam maleh. Every single word is an entire world. וכשאדם עומד להתפלל ומדבר דיבורי התפילה, and a person starts davening, אזי הוא מלקט ציצים ופרחים ושושנים נעים. When a person starts to gather, מלקט, he gathers beautiful buds and flowers and blossoms. כאדם ההולך בשדה, like a person strolling in a field. ומלקט שושנים ופרחים נעים אחת לאחת. And they pick up a bud here, a flower here, a blossom here. עד שעושה אגודה אחת. Until he takes all those things and creates a bouquet. That's what's so beautiful. I said before the word romantic. Yeah, that's what I meant before. Like, what a beautiful illustration of a person walking through a field and picking up this, picking up that. He's saying, that's really what davening is. Davening is walking through a field. Prayer is really walking through a field, saying a word here, another letter here, another word here, picking up one thing, until it all comes together, and it's formed into aguda achat. ואחר כך מלקט עוד אחת לאחת, ועושה אגודה אחרת ומחברם יחד. Then you put together another bouquet, וכן הולך ומלקט ומקבץ כמה וכמה אגודות יפים ונעים. And then you basically go on and you pick and you gather more and more, creating lovely, beautiful, wondrous bouquets that are all made from your davening, from your prayer. Yeah.
Just to go back to the step of thing.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand is it just because you said that the people who you hire to weep.
Right.
Could that also be brought in as if you're kind of relying on someone else, or it's not really coming from you, or
that would cause the vision to be blurred. Yes, mamash, yes. Yeah. Okay. כמו כן, הוא הולך בתפילה מאות לאות. This is the journey of a person through prayer. You go from letter to letter, עד שמתחברים כמה אותיות ונעשה מהם דיבור. Like, we're so used to just saying the word Baruch, but Baruch is really a bouquet made up of Bet, Resh, Vav, and Chaf, right? We're just used to just saying these words together, but really, it's all, even each word, each letter is a flower, and they're come together, and they form a aguda. עד שמחברים כמה אותיות ונעשה מהם דיבור, until you gather together a few letters, and then dibur, and then speech starts to come out. וכן עושה בתיבות שלמות, and then you form words. ואחר כך נתחברים שתי התיבות, and then these two words come together, you start forming sentences. ואחר כך הולך ומלקט יותר, by the way, it's interesting. What's this sefer called? Likutei, this comes from this inyan of leket, lilkot, to gather. Because really the gatherings of Morenu Harav Rebbe Nachman, Likutei Moharan. But I once learned that it comes from this teaching that Rebbe Nachman is saying here, I'm giving you my bouquet. Likutei Moharan. This is my bouquet of this world. I spent 38 years here and I was picking flowers the whole time. The whole time. It's just picking flowers. I was putting together bouquets. It's גוואלד, no? ליקוטי מהר"ן. ואחר כך הולך ומלקט יותר עד שגומר ברכה אחת. Okay, you put a whole form of a bouquet until you actually finish a full bracha, the first bracha of 18. ואחר כך מלקט יותר ויותר. And you continue gathering more and more through this field called tefillah. והולך מאבות לגבורות. Right? That's the first bracha to the second bracha. ומגבורות לקדושות. And then after Ata Gibor, you go to Ata Kadash. But that's only after you've formed bouquets. וכן הולך להלן יותר. מי יפאר גודל פאר הליקוטים והקיבוצים? Who could glorify, who could describe the greatness of the glory of the gathering? פאר הליקוטים והקיבוצים שאדם מלקט ומקפץ בדיבורי התפילה. Rabbi Nachman says, do we have any idea how beautiful and blossoming that bouquet is that's formed, that's a result of us taking letter to letter, word to word, forming a bracha? Do you know how beautiful that bouquet is? It's the most gorgeous thing in the world. And a tachlis of a person is to be aware. And the more aware that you're doing that, the more you will be one with those diburim, and the more that you will come to appreciate the purpose of creation, which is be able to know what you want to tell Hashem. וכשהדיבור יוצא, now when speech does emerge, הדיבור יוצא מהנפש. Where does speech come from? So this is an interesting thing. Others may say, well, it's my mind. I have a formation of letters that I know they produce certain sounds, but it's an intellectual grasping, right? That in my mind it's made sense to me that that letter is this, and then. Before I know it, I just start speaking it. So, but really, and then it comes from the cup, from the head. But Rabbi Nachman says, actually, no. Speech emerges from the soul, from the nefesh, like it's written. We've learned this many times. Vayihi ha'adam lenefesh chaya, that when it says that man became a living soul, which differentiates us from what differentiates us from all the other creations that were created before us, it's what Onkelos says. How does Onkelos translate the words we became a living soul? Leruach memalela. 2, we became a speaking spirit. That's what differentiates us from the animal kingdom. That we're a speaking spirit. That's how Rabbi Nachman is connecting here. That dibur comes from the nefesh and not from the moach. Ve'adibur ba v'nishma le'oznav. Now this is very deep. And then speech comes and is heard in your ears. What does that mean? K'mo she'amru rabotenu zichronenu livracha, hashma le'oznecha ma she'ata motzi beficha. When it comes to the laws of brachas, you have to hear what your mouth is saying. So that's true for all of davening. How should a person daven Shmona Esrei? Does anyone know? Huh? Belachash, but not lachash, not so much lachash that you can't hear yourself. You have to be able, you have to just, right now it's weird to do this, but for a second, talk on the level that you would do in Shmona Esrei. Try it for a second. Okay, what's amazing is that each person is saying it, and it's not interfering into the other person's place. What is that connected to? The beginning of the teaching that we said. That the tzaddik makes space for each person to be able to have their place in the sadeh. Sometimes the tzaddik has to push someone aside if their tefillah is, imagine we were in a room right now, in the Shmona Esrei, and I started saying, right? Can you imagine that? It's very irritating. Because some people are harder of hearing, and that's actually, they're Mekayim this, right? But now let's go deeper. Now open your hearts. This is very deep. Why is it important for me to hear what my mouth is saying? Because the Torah wants us, and the tzaddik here is telling us, listen to what your soul is sending to you. The dibur is coming from the soul. Speech is coming from the soul. Make sure you hear what your mouth is saying means make sure you're getting the messages that are coming from your neshama. Be in touch with it. Quite often we're in touch with a lot of dibur that's not dibur metukan, not fixed speech, but it's speech that really is coming from places of opinions, thoughts, and chatterboxes, and that's what we're much more in touch with. But when I'm in a place of prayer and it's working properly, and I'm doing the way he just described with picking up these, all the different, in the orchard. So therefore, Rabbi Nachman is saying to us now, you have to remember that real dibur, when it's fixed, it emerges, really comes from the soul. When Chazal say, Hashma le'oznecha, ma shata motzi b'ficha, what it really means is, make sure you hear what your soul is telling you. This bringing a person much more closer to their tachlit. Like if we could stop this whole teaching right now and go into a whole world of saying, how does a person know if the thoughts that are going into their mind are coming from a holy place or not? Or how does a person know if what they're davening for is the right thing to daven over? These are very good questions. But I want to put these questions out there, but I want to stick to how Rabbi Nachman is going to take us on this journey. Just one more footnote here. Rabbi Nachman says that when that the utterance that emerges from his mouth reaches his ears and begins to implore his soul not to part from it. Meaning, not just listen to what your soul is telling you. Rabbi Nachman says that when you listen, hashma le'oznecha, when you listen in your ears, what's coming out of your mouth, you're hearing what your soul is actually asking of you to do. And what is your soul asking of you to do? Look at the next paragraph. This is unbelievable. Azai hadibur mevakesh umitchanen mehanefesh leval tipared mimeno. This speech is begging the soul, do not part from me. Betechef ksheyotze ot rishona, kegon ot bet mitevat baruch. When you say ba, even ba, azai mevakesh umitchanen mehanefesh leval tipared mimeno. Every time you can hear, you could smell one of the flowers. What you're really hearing is the soul saying, please don't live your life without me. Please make sure you're connected to me. That's the fragrance of the buds and the blossoms. That's what the fragrance produces. Now look, now he has this interesting piece here in the middle of the teaching. He starts talking now on behalf of a neshama. Rabbi Nachman now is speaking like a soul. Look at this. Ki ech tuchal litpared mimeni, legodel ha'itkashrut ve'ahava sheyesh benenu. How dare you leave me? How could you think of living without me? There's so much love between us. Ki ata ro'eh et yekar yofi. You see my precious beauty, ve'zivi, my radiance, ve'hadari, my magnificence, ve'tifarti, and my splendor. Now that you have a taste of this orchard style of living, you see all this. Ech tuchal lenatek atzmecha mimeni ve'lifrod meiti. How could you spend the rest of your day not with me? Like, how could you? Why would you? Hen emet, shata tzirich leilech yoter. It's true, you have to keep on walking throughout the field. Kedei lilkot lelaket od zgulot yikarot v'chamudot gdolot. You have to gather many more additional valuable treasures here, and great delights that are waiting for you in this field. It's true. Aval ech tuchal lifrod mimeni. But how could you separate yourself from me even for 1 second? V'lishkoach oti, and forget me. Again, this is the soul talking to the person. Al kol panim tireh, shebekol makom shetelech v'tavo lesham, lo tishkach oti v'lo tipared mimeni. So see it, that wherever it is you move on to, don't forget me or separate me from me for 1 second. It's an amazing illustration we have over here. Rabbi Nachman speaking as a neshama. Right? You guys do this all the time? Is this, do you hear what he's saying over here? Like, do you understand how this happens? Rabbi Nachman says if you really, really pay attention to what's emerging from your soul, this is what you would hear. The soul imploring you, don't choose to live a second without me being right there with you.
So the naked soul is the person who lived his life, but he didn't have connection to his neshama. So then the neshama is feeling like, I'm naked, I was left alone.
Because if it had a connection to its neshama, then it would fill itself with Torah and mitzvahs. But because it didn't have a connection to its neshama, therefore it didn't force a person to get the proper garb for the real world, and therefore they're left naked because there's no Torah and mitzvahs there. Yes. Okay, so now let's go even deeper. So how could it be possible for a person that doesn't have any garb when they're in the next world to enter the orchard? When the light, like we said last week, shines so bright? Because Rabbi Nachman is the master of souls. So he's speaking on a soul level. So he could still say it's true, you don't have any Torah and mitzvahs to do, but maybe there's something that the soul could still do. What's that? Maybe. I'm saying this as a maybe. What could the soul do in the next world? But that Torah and mitzvahs we know they can't do. We're not even talking about that here. He talks about that in other places. Saying they're outside the orchard. Or even while we're in this world, but it's outside the orchard. What can a soul always do? Huh? Pray. I think. Huh?
Because speech is a soul.
Because speech emerges, because dibur emerges from the nefesh, meaning not pray like we understand prayer, but it's connected to the world of tefillah, because that's where the world of tefillah originates from in this world as well. And Rabbi Nachman is the master of explaining to neshamas how to daven. Could be. All right, you still with me, or it's way too far out today? Everyone's okay? This was your last Rabbi Nachman shir? We haven't even started. You understand? We haven't even started.
Who's the soul talking to?
Hashem. Oh, over here? Oh, to us, like to the whole, to the full picture of us.
But like, how are you supposed to hear it? Which part of you is supposed to hear that?
Your ears. Hashmeh la'oz. No, I'm serious right now. Meaning, the physical formation of you is who the soul is talking to. Hashmeh la'oznecha. Why dafka to the ozn? Because that's the way Hashem chose to create human beings, that they hear through their ears. So the way that we are in this world, it's like right now, how do I know who's talking to who? Am I talking to you, or is my soul talking to you? I hope both, but I have to be real, that part of me is responding to a visual that responded to something that I hear. So it's the functions of the senses of this world combined with the neshama. Hopefully, Be'ezrat Hashem, is how we're conversing. Same thing with, like, when I talk to myself. That's why Rebbe Nachman says it's very important. You have to, when you do itbodedut, it can't be silent. You actually have to use the human faculties that you have of expression. Because that's the way Hashem put you in this world. That's how we function.
So you bring it into like a physical realm, and that makes it more like real.
Better. In this world, yeah. In this world, yeah. So I can't explain how it works in the next world where the soul speaks. We don't, because we're not there. We don't know how that functions. But in this world, that's why it's like you have to remember, this is the way Hashem created us. This is how we function. So who's the soul talking to? It's Chevrusa in this world.
Every time we speak, it's the soul that's speaking?
No, he's saying like this. It emerges, soul in its root and really emerges from, dibur in its root emerges from nefesh, right? But when the dibur is not bishlemut, when I'm not speaking properly, then the words that I'm saying are coming from what we usually call as sitra achra, other sides. Other side doesn't just mean like evil. It also means the opposite of where it came from. So in the world of Hasidus, sometimes the opposite of the place of soul, all right, is only das without any or in it. Mm-hmm. And I can be so convinced that I know myself and I know what I want from life. But those are all thoughts that are based on a dibur that has emerged from here. So Rebbe Nachman says, but when I really daven, and the davening is based on picking flowers and buds and blossoms, and the fragrance and everything opens me up to what?
To the tzaddik.
To the tzaddik's work of connecting me to these places, and then I could really hear the neshama is saying, live a soul life. This is what you really want. Why wouldn't you want this? Look how great life is when the two of us are together. And look how really nothing is worth it. Like all those other things you do, nothing's really worth it when that's not the way things are going. Okay. That happens, Rabbi Nachman says, you could hear all this just based on the letter bet of Baruch. Mikol sheken kshegomer teva achat. All the more so when you finish a whole word. Azai kol teva mevakeshet kol hanal. then the whole word is asking for the above. Umelapefet oto, umechabeket oto, and it embraces it, it caresses it, meaning the soul caresses the person. Ve'ina manachat oto lalech meita, and it doesn't allow the body to leave it. Ube'emet, hu tzarich umukhrach ledaber od harbe diburim v'chama brachot ve'inyanim ad gmar atfilah. There's so much more to say till you finish davening. Al ken haklal shetzarich la'asot echad mikol atfilah kula. Therefore, like we said before, what we really need to do, since there's so much loaded and packed in every single word, in every single letter, we have to make an entire prayer one. Tzarich la'asot echad mikol atfilah. Like it, maybe you end up bringing a lot of different bouquets to a prayer service, but the goal is to show how it's one big bouquet, which he'll be speaking about. ובכל דיבור שמדבר, יהיה נמצא שם כל הדיבורים של התפילה. In every single word that you say, all of your kavanas and everything of the davening should be in that word. ומהתחלת התפילה עד הסוף יהיה הכל אחד. Let me ask you, did you ever have a sense that when you walked out of a shul, the whole experience was walking out of shul with you? Like the whole davening? Can you remember this even? When was it? Do you remember? Yom Kippur? Hoshana Rabbah? Well, you know what I mean when I say the whole prayer? Meaning everything you felt, all the kavanas you had, and you walked out of shul, and you felt like, wow, Gevalt, this is one aguda. This is all packaged. It's one package. It's all there. And Nachman says that be'emet, essentially, that's the greatest way of tying it all together. That's what it should be.
The image helps though.
Very, very much. Very, very much. And I think that's why a lot of people, they daven based on the spheres, because that helps them understand, oh, now I'm here, now I'm going into here, now I'm going into here, and then I have a whole binyan of tefillah with me. Very much so. וכשעומד, just a few more lines, וכשעומד בדיבור האחרון של התפילה, and when you're at the end, וישן למלך על כל הארץ, ומי ישן אחד ושמו אחד, right? יהיה עדיין עומד בתיבה ראשונה של התפילה. You should still be as if you're holding from the first word of davening. Hodu l'Hashem kiru bishmo, hodu l'malilotav. Can you imagine that? כדי שעל ידי זה יוכל להתפלל כל התפילה כולה. So you could really be praying the whole entire prayer. ואף על פי כן לא יתפרד אפילו מאות ראשונה של התפילה. And this way you could pray the entire tefillah and nonetheless not separate yourself from even its first letter. So to tie this all together, this is just the last footnote, okay, for today. As explained, a person must be able to focus on each letter without losing awareness of the previous letters and words recited during his prayers. And even as you move on to the end, you must remain ever mindful of what came before, creating a single unity, a oneness, out of all the different parts of the prayer. Rebbe Nachman explains that ordinary people, now you're going to feel all much better right now. Look, Rebbe Nachman explains that ordinary people can't accomplish this on their own. Our only hope of making the entire prayer one is by being bound to the very great tzaddik, the master of the field, because he's the master of all the different buds and blossoms and flowers. He has already attained this exalted spiritual level, which corresponds to perfected speech, which is the tachlis. And as Rebbe Nachman will explain in the next section, oneness is perfected speech and the ultimate goal / purpose. And having achieved this, the great tzaddik must see that other individuals too move closer to the tachlis and unify all letters and words of their prayers. So in review, now just a short review of everything we did until now, from the beginning. There is a field in which the souls of those who keep the Torah and its mitzvahs grow. Other souls wander about outside this field, either because they lack the garments of Torah and mitzvahs, and so cannot gain entry, or because they exited the field and find it difficult to return. There's also a master of the field, a very great tzaddik, who both tends to the souls inside the field and strives to rectify the souls trapped outside it. When the souls keep the Torah and its mitzvahs and so return to the field, the eyes of the tzaddik shine. He is then able to bring people to their tachlis, which corresponds to perfected speech. A person whose speech is perfected makes a single unity, a oneness, out of all the letters and the words of his prayer. Alavai on all of us. Alavai on all of us. Just one thing to end here. I remember now Rabbi Nachman said somewhere else, praiseworthy is the person who's able to utter one word, right? One word of full emes coming from his full emes while they're standing in the presence of Hashem. So the tzaddik's teachings and his guidance help us to achieve this a mighty, awesome goal. In the context of our shir, this is how Rabbi Nachman felt. This is the reason that Rabbi Nachman felt he was sent into this world, to do this type of avodah, to help people do this type of work. This is why people feel so close to Rabbi Nachman, because once you taste this, and once you have this moment of saying one real word before Hashem, you'll do anything in the world to get back to that place, because there's nothing that feels more aligned and healing and harmonious in this world. So I want to give us a bracha. Shebe'ezer Hashem, please God, we will have many, many more moments like this in our day, in our davening, dots, until we can just connect the dots and live like this continuously. Bezrat Hashem.
Amen.